Have you ever felt absolutely certain that a woman was interested in you only to watch her drift towards someone who seemed to do nothing special? You texted back quickly. You were kind. You showed up, and somehow it still wasn't enough. She pulled away, and you were left wondering what you missed. I've been there. Most men have. And I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what I'm about to share goes deeper than anything you've read in a Reddit thread or heard from a friend. I'm your host, and this is The Gentle Mind, where we uncover the real psychology that creates desire. And I'll warn you now, the final one is incredibly powerful. It can change everything fast, and almost no one uses it correctly. Let me paint the picture a little more clearly. You meet her. There's something there. You can feel it. She laughs at your jokes. She lingers in conversation. Every signal seems green. So, you do what makes logical sense. You pursue. You make yourself available. You check in. You show genuine interest. And then quietly, something shifts. The replies slow down. The energy cools. She's still polite, but something is gone. And you can't figure out what you did wrong because from where you stood, you did everything right. Here's what I need you to hear, and I mean this completely. This was never your fault. Nobody taught you this. You were handed a story about attraction that was built on logic, on fairness, on the idea that consistent effort and good intentions are enough, and they are enough. In business, in friendship, in almost every other area of life. But attraction operates on a completely different system. One that lives below the surface. One that doesn't respond to effort the way you'd expect. And once you understand how that system actually works, everything changes. The mistake wasn't that you cared too much. The mistake was a sequencing error. You offered the reward before the tension was built. You gave comfort before you created curiosity. That's not a character flaw. That's just missing information. And today, you get the information. Here's the framework you need to hold in your mind. Attraction in women is not a decision. It's a biological response. Evolutionary psychology shows us that over thousands of years, women developed a finely tuned subconscious scanner that reads men for specific qualities. Not just physical, but energetic, behavioral, emotional. And this scanner doesn't respond to logic. It responds to patterns, to signals, to subtle cues that communicate value, safety, and mystery all at once. Most men never learn what those signals are, so they operate on the surface. Compliments, availability, validation, while the deeper system remains unstimulated. What we're doing today is going underneath. We're identifying the 7 hidden signals that speak directly to that scanner. The ones that create genuine involuntary desire. Not manipulation, not games. Real tools rooted in psychology that, when used with respect and intention, make you someone she genuinely wants to be closer to. Once you understand these, you stop chasing. You stop overthinking every text. You stop trying to perform. You simply become the man the signals are pointing toward. And that man draws people in without effort. Let's begin. The first signal is masculine presence. This has nothing to do with your height, your jaw, or your wardrobe. Presence is the quality of being fully groundedly here. It's the opposite of nervous energy. When a man walks into a room scanning for approval, fidgeting, laughing too quickly, apologizing for taking up space, the subconscious scanner picks it up immediately. Not as a judgment, but as data. It reads as low value. Not because he's a bad person, but because anxious energy signals that a man hasn't found his footing yet. Grounded presence signals the opposite. It says, I'm not here to prove anything. I'm comfortable in myself. I have somewhere to be. Something I'm building. A life that doesn't depend on anyone's validation. Picture this. You're at a social event. 2 men stand near the bar. One is scanning the room, laughing loudly at everything, angling toward every conversation, trying to insert himself. The other is relaxed. He speaks when he has something real to say. He holds eye contact without forcing it. He doesn't need to fill every silence. Women feel that difference in their nervous system before their brain even names it. Be the second man. Not cold, not arrogant, just rooted. The first signal is this. Stop seeking approval and you become someone worth seeking. The second signal is emotional challenge. One of the most counterintuitive truths in attraction psychology is this. Women don't fall for the man who makes everything easy. They fall for the man who keeps them slightly on their toes. Not through cruelty, not through games, through playful, warm, genuine challenge. When you agree with everything she says, laugh at everything she does and make your approval feel automatic, you remove the very tension that makes desire possible. Desire lives in a gap, the gap between wanting and having. The moment you close that gap too fast, something essential disappears. Playful teasing creates polarity. It communicates that you have standards, that your approval means something because it isn't guaranteed. Done with warmth, it's not a power move. It's a signal that you see her clearly enough to poke at her a little. She tells you she's obsessed with a TV show you genuinely find terrible. Instead of nodding along, you smile and say, "I'll try not to hold that against you." She laughs. That's tension. That's interest. That's the gap opening up just enough. Be playful. Be real. Don't perform agreement. Approval that costs nothing is worth nothing. The third signal is selective attention. Here's something most men don't realize. When your attention is available at all times for all things to everyone, it loses its value. Scarcity creates worth. This isn't manipulation. This is economics, and it's deeply wired into human psychology. A man who has a full life, real friendships, passions he pursues, goals he's working toward, doesn't have unlimited attention to give. And that's not a deficiency. That's an asset. When a man like that gives you his time, it means something, because you know he has other places to be. The mistake many men make is making themselves endlessly available. Texting back within seconds every time, rearranging their schedule at a moment's notice, checking in constantly when there's no real reason to. This doesn't communicate love. It communicates that she is the center of a life that otherwise feels empty. And that, whether she can name it or not, is pressure, not attraction. Build the life first. Let the life be real and give your attention from that fullness, not that emptiness. A man with somewhere to be is far more magnetic than a man who's always waiting. If this is making sense so far, hit subscribe and join the Gentle Mind community. It helps more men learn what they were never taught. These signals exist in the real world every single day, and most men walk right past them. Don't be that man. The fourth signal is intentional listening. This one is quiet, but it is devastating in the best possible way. Most men hear women. Very few actually listen. There's a profound difference between hearing the words someone says and truly receiving what they mean. And women feel that difference at a cellular level. Because most of the time, they've spent their whole lives having people look at them without actually seeing them. When you listen with full attention, when you remember the small things she mentioned 2 weeks ago about her relationship with her mother or the nervous excitement she had about a project at work, when you bring it back naturally in a later conversation, something happens inside her that she can't quite explain. She feels seen, not performed at, seen. That feeling is rare, and rare things are precious. You don't need to be a therapist. You don't need to have perfect emotional intelligence. You just need to be genuinely curious about her inner world and pay enough attention to remember what matters to her. Next time she tells you something small, file it. Bring it back when she least expects it. Watch what happens. To be truly seen is one of the deepest human needs. Be the man who offers it. The fifth signal is calibrated vulnerability. There is a version of vulnerability that repels and a version that attracts, and the difference is everything. The repelling version is unloading. It's using emotional openness as a bid for reassurance, sharing wounds and waiting for her to hold them, venting anxiety and hoping she'll absorb it, confessing insecurities as a way of asking her to convince you otherwise. This doesn't build intimacy. It creates pressure, and it signals that she would be entering a caretaking role, not a partnership. The attractive version of vulnerability is something different. It's a man who is self-aware enough to share something real without collapsing into it. He can say, "There was a period in my life when I felt completely lost, and it taught me more than anything." He can share a fear, a failure, a lesson, not as a performance of openness, but as a genuine glimpse behind the surface. This kind of vulnerability communicates something powerful. It says, "I'm strong enough not to hide, and grounded enough not to fall apart." That combination, strength and openness, is extraordinarily rare in men. And when she sees it, it creates a depth of attraction that physical appearance alone can never produce. Share real things, but share them from solid ground. Strength that can be seen through is more attractive than armor. The sixth signal is gradual physical touch. This one requires care, and I want to be clear. Everything here is rooted in respect, in reading real signals, in never crossing a line that hasn't been opened. Here's the psychology. Touch, when offered appropriately and progressively, triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It creates warmth. It creates connection. But the word gradual is everything. A hand that reaches too far too fast creates alarm. But a brief light touch on the arm during a moment of laughter, a gentle touch on the upper back as you guide her through a door, a moment of deliberate but unhurried physical contact when the context earns it. These things communicate safety and desire at the same time. They say, "I'm present. I'm here. I see you, and I'm not afraid of that." The mistake men make is either avoiding touch entirely out of fear, which reads as disconnection, or pushing too fast, which reads as aggression. The middle path is calibrated. It reads the moment. It's light. It's confident. It leaves her wanting the next one. Touch is a language. Learn to speak it slowly. Skin to skin in the right moment says, more than words ever could. And now, the seventh signal. This is the one I warned you about at the beginning. The one almost no one uses correctly. The one that, once you understand it, completely reframes how you show up. The seventh signal is controlled unpredictability. The human brain is a reward prediction machine. When something is completely predictable, the dopamine response flatlines. The brain stops paying attention, but when there is an element of genuine warm uncertainty, when you can't quite predict what comes. Next, dopamine rises. Interest sharpens. The mind leans in. Leans. This is why the partner who agrees with everything, responds the same way every time, and follows a perfectly consistent script becomes invisible over time. Not because they're boring as a person, but because they've accidentally removed the unpredictability that keeps the brain engaged. Controlled unpredictability doesn't mean being inconsistent in ways that cause anxiety. It doesn't mean canceling plans or sending mixed signals or leaving her, confused about your intentions. That's not mystery, that's instability, and it's harmful. What it means is this. Sometimes you respond to her message with warmth and depth. Sometimes you're brief and playful. Sometimes you suggest something unexpected. A walk somewhere unusual. A conversation that goes somewhere neither of you planned. Sometimes you hold back the compliment and let the moment breathe. You're not scripted. You're alive. You're genuinely interesting because you're genuinely interested in life. And that energy moves through everything you do. She can't fully predict you, and that keeps her thinking about you between the moments she sees you. Dopamine doesn't just respond in the moment, it runs in anticipation. When she doesn't quite know what the next version of you will bring, she thinks about it. She's already leaning toward the next conversation. Be the man who keeps her curious, not through absence of care, but through presence of depth. Predictability is the quiet killer of desire. Mystery is what keeps the door open. Now, let's bring this together. 7 signals. Masculine presence, emotional challenge, selective attention, intentional listening, calibrated vulnerability, gradual physical touch, controlled unpredictability, not a checklist, not a performance, a way of being. And here is the shift I want to leave you with. The man who understands these signals doesn't need to chase. He becomes someone worth approaching. He moves through the world with a quiet kind of confidence that isn't loud and isn't arrogant. It's just deeply settled. He knows who he is. He knows what he brings. And he gives his attention, his vulnerability, his warmth from a place of fullness, not desperation. That man doesn't manipulate. He doesn't trick. He doesn't play games for power. He uses real tools with real intention. And the result is real connection. The kind of connection that deepens over time instead of burning out. You don't need to be perfect to use these signals. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need the strategy, the awareness, the decision to stop operating on a broken script that was never yours to begin with, and start operating from actual understanding of how desire works. That shift happens quietly. It doesn't announce itself. It just begins. And the next time you're in a conversation that matters, you'll notice something different. You'll feel less anxious to be liked and more interested in being real. You'll listen differently. You'll move differently. You'll hold yourself differently. And she will feel that, even if she can't name it. You haven't just learned 7 tips today. You've begun to see the architecture that most men never see. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's not a trick. That's a transformation. If you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming the man women genuinely desire, subscribe to The Gentle Mind now. Turn on notifications because the next one will shift your reality again.